Lesson 13, Reading 2. We're glad you're still with us. Hope you enjoyed this lesson. This lesson will deal with two topics. Number one, can every student learn to read? And number two, how reading skills can keep students out of jail. Why do we in America do such a bad job of teaching reading? Is it because many of our students do not have the intellectual capacity or capability to learn to read? In other words, they just don't have the brain power to master reading. True or false? Here's a 2014 study. For students with intellectual disability, functional skills are often prioritized over academics, but a new study finds that children with low IQ are capable of learning to read. With persistence and specialized instruction, researchers found that kids with mild to moderate intellectual disability can read at first grade level or better. They say the results could have life-changing implications for thousands of students with low IQs. If these children and any other struggling readers can learn to read, this means they can go to the grocery store and use a shopping list, read the labels on boxes and cans, and read basic instructions, said Jill Auler of Southern Methodist University, who led the study published in the journal Exceptional Children. Even minimum reading skills can lead to a more independent life and improve job opportunities. For the study, researchers followed a group of 141 kids with IQ scores ranging from 40 to 80, all of whom were able to speak. Of those studied, 76 students received 40 to 50 minutes of intensive reading instruction daily in small groups with no more than 4 students to each teacher. The remaining 65 students were provided standard lessons with varying levels of reader instruction. After 4 years, the students who received the specialized instruction performed significantly better on a variety of reading tests compared to those who participated in the traditional lessons, the study found. What's more, researchers said that IQ did not predict a child's ability to read. While students with higher IQ scores generally improve more quickly, there are cases where children with low IQ scores outperform their peers with higher scores. This study demonstrates the potential of students with intellectual disability or low IQ to achieve meaningful literacy goals. Auler said, according to the findings, we know we should never give up on anyone. So what's the point? If low IQ students can learn to read, then the remainder of the distribution of students should be able and be capable. If you can teach the lower tail, you can teach them all. Conclusion, my conclusion. It is the fault of the parents or the school system that a student cannot read. It will take resources, but spending money early on will reap large benefits later. We can save many students. We should never have to choose between promoting a student to the 4th grade or holding them back another year in the 3rd. They must all be ready. Here is a video clip from Jeffrey, Canada, that will build our confidence that we can teach all kids.
Dr. Baker said, there is an answer for every kid. And if you don't have the answer, it is not the kid's fault. It is because you are not skilled enough, and at that point, you call me, right? Now I'm thinking, really? Now we've got some really difficult kids here. And I was good with most of the kids. There was one kid, I just couldn't get this kid to respond. The kid had never been to class, had never sat still, had never paid. We couldn't get the kid to even look at us. This kid was, to me, completely shut down. And I tried every technique I knew, and none of it would work. And finally, I said, Dr. Baker, I know you said there's an answer for every kid, but you haven't met Monroe. And he said, no, Jeff, we can figure out what that. I said, no, I did it. All the stuff, I went through the whole thing. He said, okay, let me go in. And this is what he said. So there's a bunch of us, Harvard sort of, we were all finishing up our work. We were eager. He said, you all watch. I was like, ooh. It's going to be embarrassing for him. Everybody's going to see him mess up, right? Took all of 2 minutes. Took all of 2 minutes. And I sat there and I said, you mean there are people really that good? There are people so good with so much skill that even for folk who think we're good, we're not even close. So I did my summer in Center Ossipee, New Hampshire. I worked with the most disadvantaged kids who had never, ever been inside a classroom. And when their parents came up 7 weeks later to look at their kids inside those classrooms, every parent started to cry because they never dreamed that an education was possible for their kid. Now, that's what happened to me here. Then I went from here into a regular traditional school, and I saw kids who were within every normal range we would ever think of, and teachers saying they couldn't educate them. And I said, how could that be true? How could that be true when I know if you are good, you can educate even kids who have severe disabilities? And how can you tell me you can't educate this kid? And why is it we have these huge numbers of kids in this country still don't learn how to read, still don't learn how to write, still can't do math, and now, right, I'm talking 38 years later. It's stunning to me. It was stunning to me when I left here that we had answers, but as a field, we weren't practicing what we had learned. It is still stunning to me to this day. Now, it wasn't just Dr. Baker that changed my life. There was another professor here whose name, actually, I ended up calling him my father. We became very close. His name was John Schlein. He ran the consulting and psychology department up here. And he started a school because he believed, it was almost antithetical to Bruce Baker, he believed that you could reach every single kid if you spent the time getting to know them, getting to be empathetic, getting to understand this kid, right? Then you could figure out how to get that kid from a place where they were stuck to a place where they could be successful. And he was just one of the most marvelous clinicians I have ever met. And I ended up running the school for him. I spent years, and all of us had to take supervision with him, which meant we all had to be analyzed. Now, for most of you, that might not be a problem. I'm a Bronx guy. I don't do analysis really well. You know, that whole tell me what's on your mind, what's bothering you, I got it, right? That's my thing. I got it, I'm good. He was too good for me. So we would all go when we know I have to do supervision. I say, I don't care what. I am not going to end up crying in this session with John Schlein today. I am not. I said, why? He said, Jeff, he's not going to get me. Why? So I go in there, see John. He was this sort of wonderful figure. Anyone who knows him, he had this silver white hair. He was elegant. He spoke and wrote just magnificently. And he'd be like, he'd look at these piercing eyes. He'd look at, Jeff, how are you? I said, I'm good. I try not to look at him. Right? I said, no, really, how are you? I said, no, I'm good. I mean, I'm feeling pretty good. He said, Jeff, are you really good? John, my life is terrible. I can't help it.
The question we ask in this portion is, do poor readers end up in jail, and if so, why? Here's a quote from my talk. There is an undeniable connection between literacy skills and incarceration rates. This little pictorial here that I'm showing points out that actually it says 20, but 25% of students graduating high school can be classified as functionally illiterate. They'll have a reading ability of a 10-year-old child. The next one is the one we're really talking about, the little prisoner. 70% of prisoners in state and federal systems can be classified as illiterate. The next one is about juveniles. 85% of all juvenile offenders rate as functionally or marginally illiterate. So that's what I really wanted you to get out of that. We don't have to think about this too long. In today's world, who wants to hire an adult person with the reading skills of a 10-year-old? What kind of a job can they get? Most repetitive, mind-numbing production jobs are gone. Service jobs and fast food restaurants don't pay enough to support one person, let alone two. Working is a good way to keep out of trouble. Idle hands are the devil's playground. So basically, if they can't read, they get into trouble and end up in jail. Here's a video clip from Jeffrey Canada that has done miracles with children in Harlem. He argues, pay me now or pay me much more later.
Look, this is why the future of this country rests on solving this problem. Because we're finally starting to admit that our solution, which was to build enough jails so all those kids that we don't educate, we can make sure that they can have a cell to be in. Now that's been the plan. I hate to tell you, back in the 70s, there were a lot of conspiracies I believed in. I won't start naming some of them, right? We can start back with who killed JFK, but I ain't going all back there. But this idea that there was an intentional plan to build prisons in poor communities and lock people up in them. Now look, I don't know whether it was a conspiracy of some well-coordinated. All I know is the end result is that we incarcerate more people per capita in the United States than any place on the face of the earth. Any place. If you don't believe me, you punch it in your phone, incarceration rates, you will see, number one, United States of America, 743 people per 100,000. No one's even close to us. No one's even close. You look at the UK, 147 per 100,000. You look at China, 115 per 100,000. 743 per 100,000. Guess who all those people are? Now, so folk get mad at me. They say, Jeff, okay, you run the Harlem Children's Zone, you start with kids from birth, you get them through college. Yeah, how much does that cost? I tell them, costs $5,000 per year per kid. I could make it half that if I include the adults. We serve a lot of adults. I don't want to make it half that. I want a nice solid number, $5,000. They say, Jeff, that's not scalable. I said, well, it's not scalable? No, it's not scalable. Tell folks, every now and then I have to end up in criminal courts. I have yet to be in a criminal court where a judge is looking and saying, oh, Raheem, this is your second armed robbery. I'm going to have to give you 10 years. But the average cost in the United States is $30,000 a year. That's $300,000. You know what, Raheem? That's not scalable. Never heard it. Never heard it. And here's the ugly truth. The average cost is 30. New York State, you know what the state average cost is, incarcerated person? $60,000. 60. When I tell you what the New York City cost is, you're not going to believe me. You're not going to believe me. But punch it in your phones. Look it up. $167,000 a year. $167,000 a year. I know, seems unbelievable. How could it be? Look it up. So, there are 12,000 people in the city jails. I work with 12,000 kids, right? You think I'm gonna listen to somebody yelling about, why won't you spend $5,000 when Raheem is 9 and you wanna yell about that, but you're totally prepared to spend $167,000 when he turns 18, and what do you get for the $167,000, right? You know what I gotta produce for my $5,000? I get these kids graduate, elementary, middle, high school, to make sure they go into college. I have to get them through college. I have to make sure that they have good health services, good social services. They are good citizens. None of my kids end up in jail. That's what do you get for $167,000? You get better citizens? No. You get people who have jobs? No. What do you get? You get nothing. You get zero, and yet in some communities, we think that's an okay investment. I have a problem with that. I get a little crazy about this stuff.